property for open space. So I'm going to let John Paul describe where things are. Turn on the, Barbara, you may.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is John Paul Garcia. I'm a licensed land surveyor and civil engineer licensed to practice state of Connecticut, principal office on 190 Fairwood Road, the town of Bethany. I'm representing the developers in the development of approximately 3.5 acres of real estate on the south side of Merritt Avenue in the town of Woodbridge, on the east side of the West River. As you can see from the screen, I'll use this as a pointer.
Yeah.
The development consists of 14 lots, 2 of which are presently under construction right now. What is shown is lots 11 and 12 are presently under construction. There are wetlands along the south side. This is the Merritt Parkway that runs from northeast to southwest. This is the DOT right-of-way line. So this is the Merritt Parkway. Let me fix my hair a little bit. Bad shadow line. Nothing I can do about that. And this is Merritt Avenue on the north. There's the West River on the west. There's a series of disturbed wetlands along the south side that are the result mainly of poor drainage practices along the Merritt Parkway. The West River is, of course, is the prime feature in the property. The intent is to establish some kind of a trail easement along the riverside that goes up and connects to Merritt Avenue. That's the best we can do. That's the only thing that really makes any kind of sense. And that's what we had discussed during the sidewalk a couple of months ago. I don't know if there's any additional feedback from anybody about what their other thoughts are, but that's what we had proposed because that seemed to be what everybody wanted.
John Paul, since you asked if there's other thoughts, let me just obtain a clarification in this. What I think the commission is looking for is open space. Now, the use of the open space was mentioned that this particular open space would be convenient to put in a connecting trail between some New Haven trails and some.
That's
trails
correct.
that are already in Woodbridge.
Yes, that's correct.
So
that would be a linear open space
Yep.
that goes from the property line on the south side
Right.
to Merritt Avenue.
So the conclusion, the obtaining the open space is, as if I read the rules and regs, it would end up being a warranty deed for the property to the town.
Yes, the developer would love to give you everything from here over. The problem with that is you have the overflow and the detention basin. The town does not want ownership or any kind of responsibility for those 2 items, and so therefore the flood control measures are going to stay the responsibility of the developer.
And just to make it clear to everybody, because it's a little gray, can you show the detention basin or?
Detention basin's here.
Whoop. I started talking and left off poking my machine, so it was.
The detention basin's here on the west side behind houses 4 through 1, and then there's an overflow area here behind lots 5 through 8.
That was not planned when we originally visited the
Yeah,
site.
and it doesn't have much of an impact on anything. All it is a grass meadow, a depressed grass meadow that picks up a couple hundred, I want to say 264 cubic yards of water, about 3,000 cubic feet of water.
Let me go back to my question on the warranty deed. Typically if a town owns land, it's not an easement, it's an actual.
Yeah, and he's more than happy to deed it in fee simple.
Yes.
The only stipulation is he would retain the rights to maintain whatever portion of the flood control measures are on the property. For example, there's a outlet here, which is the outlet from the flood, the detention basin.
Sure,
Well, no matter what we give you,
yeah.
it's gonna cross that outlet.
All right, so the easement would actually go from the town back to the,
What you would have is a relatively, it's not that complicated. You would take in fee simple, a piece of property,
yeah,
we would come to some kind of an agreement. I would suggest coming down along the existing easement, across, down the top of the basin, which, because it already gives you the trail already constructed, down through the edge of the overflow area, down to the south edge of the property. And you would retain in fee simple the property, you'd have the rights to the property. The owner of the developer, who's gonna retain those 14 lots, he's building this as rental units, he would retain the right to maintain the drainage structures.
So John Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but in any development, the Conservation Commission can have 10%, or it's possible to have some jurisdiction or deed it over 10%. Why is it wouldn't be wiser for us to say, you know, that's already gonna be protected land. Why don't we take some other land to add to the general,
Well, what do you have in mind?
I mean, just, you know, we could, I mean,
That's not gonna happen.
that's what I'm asking you.
That's, I'll be perfectly upfront with you. You have the right to ask, it doesn't mean he has to give it to you.
Uh-huh.
And you have to have a use for it other than I just don't want to put two houses there. There's no logical use for anything here other than a connecting trail.
When we went
here
to the site
to
visit,
there.
weren't people really objecting to a connecting trail because of the?
The locals were. The locals were.
the residents, nearby residents had concerns.
Didn't want people
Yes.
from New Haven walking into Woodbridge.
That's true.
Right. So that's a
And
valid,
that's why I made the point to John Paul, that you know, what we're after here is not a trail. We're after open space.
You're after open space, and that's what
We
we're,
may put a trail on it.
but if this is already open space that's gonna be there, it doesn't give the planet any more
Well,
open space.
Well, actually, the open space is, if you're considering it open space, I'll yield that point for now, is the detention basin, which is a structure of sorts, and the overflow basin. And John Paul, if you can point out the red dotted lines, to the left. The edge of what the proposal was for to grant to the town.
yeah,
All that from the river, the edge of the river.
I know.
the edge-
That's
But
not, that would not be open space necessarily. I mean, it wouldn't be built upon, but it wouldn't be preserved, protected open
It
space.
wouldn't, what would it be then?
It would be owned by the developer. If it wasn't deeded to us, it'd be owned by the developer.
So you think there's some benefit in it being the portion that we request is open space versus more open space, which John Paul clearly says is untenable?
Well,
I think for a number of reasons, I think the ask is difficult. Number one, because why would the town want a disconnected piece of property in a development for which they would accept all legal responsibility and there's no benefit? That's number one. I've had this argument for 35 years, so I'll make the argument. Just because the town says you should have open space is laudable. Probably 50% of this after development is going to stay as open space. The problem is, what do you do with the piece that you have? In order to access it, you have to come down a road. The town also retains liability. So if somebody trips and falls on that piece of property, the town is still liable.
Well, that's the same with having a trail through it, that's even more likely.
But you have a end use for a trail. One of the goals of West Rock Ridge Association is to connect New Haven to Woodbridge, the trail system. This would allow you to do that. A block of property here gets you nothing.
John Paul, can you highlight where the wetlands are on this map?
There's wetlands here, here, little pocket here, and then there's a pocket here. And most of these wetlands are all the result of drainage from the
Still wetlands.
Merritt Parkway.
Yeah, and mostly on state property.
and they're mostly on state property. Then there's a wetland that's very tight to the river corridor.
Is this wetlands up here?
That dotted line?
Right here. No, it goes right here.
Okay, it doesn't go, what's?
It doesn't go over here.
It doesn't go,
Up
okay,
here. The wetlands goes right here.
okay.
It's a very, very, very narrow confined almost to the edge of the river.
But as it being wetlands, there'd still be restriction in terms of use.
Yeah, we're not proposing a development anywhere near it.
So John Paul, don't the regulations say that we can ask for a 10% set aside for open space that's representative of the total
Sure.
parcel? So what you're suggesting, would that be representative of the total parcel in terms of?
What I'm saying is that kind of a trail, that kind of an or that kind of a fee parcel has a use that's specifically asked for in a number of documents pertaining to the West Rock and West Rock
But
Bridge
there's also a
Association.
lot of people who don't want it too.
But the locals don't want it, and I think their reasoning is questionable. But that's immaterial, that's not my call.
So,
But it could have another use, such as a little park.
so
Well,
I-
see, but again, sure, you wanna put a park in here?
No, not there, I'm talking along the river.
Yeah, you could do a linear park.
You're
There's a
talking-
lot of linear parks.
Yeah.
There are a tremendous number of linear parks all over
So that could be
these type of
another,
corridors.
another valid use
Yes.
of the
So
open
John Paul,
space.
you say there's, my hope in getting 10% is actually decreasing the number of structures. And your hope is that that isn't gonna occur.
No, but see, that's what I'm saying is, your hope is not what the intent of the open space requirement was. I mean, you can ask for anything you want. I can just relay it to my client, and we let the chips fall where they may. But what I'm saying is, when you ask for something like that, there has to be a reasonable end use. And the reasonable end use is just to decrease the number of houses. I don't know how that plays.
Or if we chose, can I use this
Sure.
for a second? If we chose something like this space, we could beautify the entranceway, make less visible impact,
No, that's me.
to the whole group of people that are
It's coming.
being affected by this.
Again, that makes,
Creative about how we can do this, because this should be protected anyway. And I don't think we're gaining anything.
it's your ask, Sharon. But what I'm saying is the idea of taking this to beautify the entranceway to Merritt Avenue, what about the other side is all built up houses? It's an ask that, while in theory sounds nice, it doesn't play well.
And
So
let me-
is the
Can
piece
I-
of land that you're suggesting, John Paul, would that be representative of the total parcel? So you've got some
You've
that's,
got upland and wetlands. That's the
No.
entire parcel.
But-
This is all upland. What you would be getting is all upland. You
What,
would be getting also the river. Also, we would throw the river in too.
how much percentage
It's
does,
a quarter of an acre. Or, excuse me, it's 20,000 square feet, which includes the river, so it's about 15,000 feet of upland and about 5,000 feet of river.
okay,
And so that's 3 acres. So that's 120,000 square feet, so 10% is 12,000 square feet.
12,
So you're getting more than
Yeah.
what is required.
Some of it's the river.
What's that?
Some of it's the actual river that we're.
Not 5,000, 15,000 is upland.
Oh,
But again, if you want to go representative, then we throw it all in the mix. And that's what I'm saying, you're getting what the...
Are you considering the detention basin as part of the 20,000?
No, I would
No.
keep the detention basin out of it.
So it's.
I would just cover the top
So
bank.
it's 20,000 without the detention basin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have to cross here.
What you haven't read is between the middle of the river and the edge of the red line, that's the 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, or approximately, yeah.
Yeah, approximately, round.
We would rework that, not this, I'm talking here. This is the marking line is something like this.
Yeah, but that,
And then up here.
okay, let's clarify. Because we've talked, that town would not want to assume a responsibility for the maintenance of the detention basin, I thought the proposal was, on the table that's labeled on the map, starts at the end of the detention basin and goes to the middle of the river.
It goes from here, the edge of the basin,
Yeah.
It's that red line down there.
that's what that red line is, yes.
So,
What is
so
this
what's
right here?
That's an overflow area.
Yeah, it's
So
what's
it's not that
encompassed.
area, it's just this.
No, it's
Right.
just a strip that goes, yes, it's just a strip.
That's the strip, with,
That's
between
correct.
the red lines.
Now,
Yes, and we can make that as wide or as narrow as you want. I would recommend keeping it along the top of the edge of the basin. You know, you're gonna have to cross here and then come down. We can make it, you know, we can, over here, you can make that as wide as you want.
Well, I thought that was a problem because it would,
All of the developer would keep the rights to maintain to cut the grass and everything else.
well, that, when we originally talked, it was gonna go out to the edge of the.
That's correct, but then the town wanted compensatory storage.
Right, and that's what that is.
And that's what this is here.
And that's why I thought it had to move over. and be
It
narrow.
does.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is we can put it back, there's nothing that says
You can't put it back and.
I can't put it here.
And then.
And then just retain the town
And then in the
would
warranty
retain,
deed, say,
yeah. And the town would retain the right to mow the grass, take care of the trees.
okay,
That's all, because that's all this is. This is gonna be a meadow.
right.
It's a depressed meadow about 2.5 feet deep.
Yeah.
So if there's a flood of the West River, is the town then responsible for it, because the town
No.
then owns the,
No, the town's not responsible for it.
it's okay, so it's no increase in liability for the town.
No.
John
So-
Paul, the straight line going by the turnaround, that's the edge of the right of way?
This is the edge of the state. This is the Merritt Parkway.
And
And
that's
this
the
is
edge of
private
the,
property.
yeah, but that's the edge of the state property.
Correct.
So this little loop-de-loop down here at the very bottom,
That's a little wetland.
that's a little wetland, but on the
On
state
state property.
property.
Yes,
Okay.
they're almost, the majority of the wetlands are on state property.
But is it within, is the setback, how far is the wetlands from the road, that little piece of wetland?
From the
This-
parkway?
Yeah,
This here,
no,
this one,
yeah,
it's about 30 feet.
so that might have some, I mean, that's not completely unreasonable to wanna protect those wetlands
it's-
more by
it's
having.
state-
No, that's the Wetlands Commission.
No, but we could ask for the conservation, our conservation land for that to help protect the, I mean, if we,
Again,
if we chose this would be more protective of the wetlands if we chose a squash like that.
The wetlands are
And that could be a
significantly,
justification.
well, the wetlands are significantly degraded. We have a wetlands report that says that. They're the result of poor drainage practices. And to be perfectly upfront, if the state ever gets off the dime and reworks the Merritt Parkway,
Come on.
that's all gonna change dramatically.
Uh-huh.
That's all gonna change dramatically. I mean, supposedly they've already got a borer lined up for the third tunnel. Because it takes about 5 years to get one of those things in place.
Wow.
If the parkway was widened there, what would that do to the SMAC?
Well,
How far over would it go?
There's discussions at the state level, and I haven't seen anything recently, that one of their scenarios is to come down through the middle of this thing, through the middle of the gas station, with an exit ramp. That's one of the discussions under.
So can they do that by eminent domain?
Yeah, we had this discussion. When we did, were you on the Wetlands Commission when we did the gas station?
Yeah.
When we did the gas station, that's the gas
We
station that
discussed-
sits over here, at the end of the ramp. We had that discussion, and, and I said, well, guys, if you're talking about taking it, why don't you do like you did in Route 7, where if you go down the Route 7 corridor, from below where Danbury Fair Mall used to be, the state owns everything on both sides of the mountain. They took all that for what was called Super 7. They never built it, and they're now divesting themselves of some of those properties. But they took the entire swath as far as you can go. I said, why aren't you guys doing this now while it's still raw land before it's developed? And they said, well, we don't think that way. That was the exact answer I got.
But if we chose it, it might then be
Makes no
easier on
difference.
you
Then
guys.
they just take it from you for eminent domain.
So,
Right,
John
but
Paul,
at
let me,
least it would be an easier thing
let
for your
me
development.
ask a clarifying question to Paul, because I thought that the tunnel and then improving the interchange was maybe two parts of the same project, but two different pieces.
It's all connected.
They're all gonna do it all at the same time?
They may not do it at the same time, but it's all
All
connected.
connected.
It's my understanding they're gonna do the bore, then they're gonna do the interchange, which I guess one of the proposals is a T that comes out behind, into what used to be DeAndre's. It comes off and combines those two into a T, and then goes right and left,
Oh,
like a short access road. That's one of the proposals. But the idea is it's gonna take about 2 years to bore a tunnel.
Yeah.
So they would,
On the right, well.
the
going
game
to-
plan was on the right.
Yeah,
The game plan was on the right
Hampton
because
on the
they
right.
would have fewer takings on that side. They already own everything from Pond Lily
Right.
up. And on the other side, you have what used to be the West Rock Nature Center, which is owned by the city of New Haven, which is a reasonable take for them. And they will bring it back. That gives you your bypass lane while they do all the interchange work.
Yes.
So the idea is you're probably gonna do this in 3 or 4 phases, but at least 1 or 2 of them are gonna run concurrently.
okay.
Again, I'm not,
But,
I haven't seen anything in years.
right, yeah, I wanted to clarify for Paul that the tunnel
Yeah.
itself is
Yeah.
gonna be on the other side.
Well, that was, who knows where they are now.
Sure.
Sure.
It's taken 25 years to get here.
All right, let me take the meeting for just a couple
Sure.
minutes. 2 points, I have the open space regulation. This is a planning and zoning regulation. And about the 10% in the way it's worded, just to help everybody. And I guess I'll just preface it by saying the request, we're nicely in discussion with John Paul and through John Paul with the developer about can we reach in a reasonable request, because our request is not a part of the regulations. It's planning and zoning that can ask for, and I'll use the right words in a minute, the 10%. It's the wrong way to say it. And so, whatever, if we can come to an agreement before it goes to planning and zoning,
Yeah.
everybody's happy, it makes things easy. But it's really planning and zoning who decides to say, what's really gonna happen, and what what demands, I guess, they put on the developer. So the regulation reads, just one sentence, the commission, talking about planning and zoning, may require, and stress on may require that a tract of land to be subdivided shall reserve open spaces, park and recreation areas at the proportionate rate of 10% of gross acreage to be subdivided. So that's the specific words around the 10th. So it's a may, it's up to, depending on circumstances, I guess, and I think John Paul has been trying to tell us from experience that, it's, to lop off a certain amount of the planned housing for that, is,
I'm not telling you anything. What I'm saying is,
yeah,
you have to have a developer in a town to sign. It's a 3-party system. It's you guys, it's the developer, it's the town. As Tim said, it goes much nicer if everybody's in agreement and there's no unreasonable ask. I think if you went to a developer and said, I'm gonna take 10 or 15% or 20% of your lots, just because I want some open space and I don't wanna see houses built there, I think that increases the odds of getting pushback and getting an unfavorable outcome. I mean, you can ask for anything you want. I'm not here to tell you what to ask for. I'm not here to tell you.
I get it, John Paul, thanks. I do get it. I just think that to protect the environment, that's a lot of housing. And to decrease it,
It's no different than what's there now.
It's an open field now.
But what I'm saying is,
the other part of it.
it's a strange, I have to admit, it's a strange development for me to work on, because these are 5,000 square foot lots, minimum. And we're normally, and that's a 3.5 acre parcel, and we're normally used to putting a 5,000 square foot house on a 3.5 acre parcel.
right, so that's
So
what
to
I'm
do
saying.
something like this, I have no frame of reference. I'll be perfectly upfront with you. It's very, very deceiving. But that's the entire, there's nothing there that's any different than what's on Merritt Avenue right now. This was what it was zoned for. Everything on Merritt Avenue, and you can see from the lot lines above, on the north side,
And Merritt
they're
Avenue,
even smaller in most cases.
as I recall, some of them had nice big backyards.
Well, some of those nice big backyards were on this property.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of the, so.
And some of those lots are double lots.
And you can see the relative sizes along the top right there from the
Yeah.
center to the
Well,
right.
those are the lots, not the houses, though.
Those are the lots.
Yeah,
And you
that's,
said,
that's what I'm saying.
Sharon, I thought you said that some of them had
Right,
big
yeah,
backyards.
yeah. I
And
did.
if you take the square and sort of manipulate your
turn-
mind, they come out to be about the same.
yeah, it's very,
Except
very
for the double
deceiving.
lot.
It's very deceiving. The only double lot is on the corner, above lot 13. The lot to the right, that double lot hasn't been divided.
Okay.
That's now got 2 duplexes on it.
John Paul, what would you think the reaction would be of the developer and yourself? I mean, most of the wetlands are on the state land, but there are some wetlands to the top right to protect that as open space, to protect the wetlands, so the neighbors don't start to impinge and impact the
Well,
wetlands.
again, the problem that you have
Yeah,
is that you have an isolated property that you have to get access to that now induces a great amount of liability with no benefit. What
well,
does it do?
I
What's
can
the
tell,
liability?
It could be recreation space.
It could be simply saved for flora and fauna.
Or a
It's
community
open
garden
space,
or
it's
something
just
like that,
there.
yeah.
You have,
That's
4,200
extremely important.
acres of West Rock Ridge. But what I'm saying from a town standard, what's the benefit to the town?
well, I think the town does get benefit from open space.
From open
I
space.
don't disagree with
And
you.
also,
I'm
there's
not-
a corridor
I'm
for
not arguing with
animals.
that.
I mean, some of the
Okay.
neighbors were talking about how animals travel through that corridor, and that's another reason to take a little more space there and allow animals to have access to the
Right.
West River.
So,
I mean, why is that not important, John Paul?
I
They have a
think,
whole
again,
wilderness. I mean,
you have the entire,
we're working with
I'm
ecosystems that we want to maintain. That's part of our.
if this was a pristine ecosystem in a area that's relatively undeveloped, I would say you have a valid point. But that's not what you have here. You have a site that was up until 1965 or 1970 used for a festival. It was fairly heavily used. You have a traffic corridor on the south side that now functions as somewhat as a wildlife corridor. This is not a pristine area, and you have the entire West Rock Ridge Park, which is relatively, from north of the tunnel, I would say, about a half a mile north of the tunnel, up into Bethany, is a valid functioning wildlife area. I mean, south of Parates, of Knowles, I think up against the base of that hill is kind of heavily impacted by the developments at the base along Luna Drive, Bradley Road, and those areas. But north of that entire corridor takes off.
Well, I
But
just-
here, a 2,000, 5,000, 8,000 square foot hunk of disconnected, and I think that's the proper word, disconnected real estate.
Why would it be disconnected? Because there'd be
Because you got
roads-
houses on the north side of it. There's all houses.
There'd be roads right up to it.
So,
No, you have houses.
I just remember these.
You got the
creek-
West River. You got the West River, which stops everything here. You've got
No,
the
but
Merritt Parkway, which is here,
ecologically, it
and you've got
doesn't-
houses all up in here. There's houses all up in here.
but John Paul, when you say, with no access, what kind of access would you typically expect to be able to have?
I would recommend if you're going to get an open space parcel, you're going to need vehicular access.
Why?
I wouldn't.
You got a fire, brush fire. You got to get something in there. You got to get equipment in there to clean it.
But this
Oh,
road would be
right.
right up to it. This road would be right to it. This would be access.
No, it doesn't. You're saying take this entire piece?
Well, if we're trying to protect it, if this is already gonna be preserved because it's wetlands and because then this would add to the benefit and create a wildlife corridor.
For
possibly-
what? How does it create a whack?
Tim.
There is no wildlife corridor.
Tim,
This is all houses up to here. I think the end of Merritt Avenue is up here someplace.
Well, I
So
just
so this
remember,
is, you're trying to create something that doesn't exist.
except that all these people who were out there talking to us were saying how there were coyotes and fox.
Of course there are, and that you can find them here on your front lawn.
But they have access to the river,
Well,
anyway, I won't keep
I would
pressing
assume,
this,
John
but-
Paul, just to kind of close it out, that from the end of the road, and Sharon makes a good point, that there is possibility of vehicular access along the edge of Lot 9 there. I can't tell the distances, but I don't know between the fence and the property line. But that's state property, and I imagine there'd be an access up through there that could be had,
It could be.
you know, in the house.
We actually moved that house on
Yeah,
the other one, we moved it farther away.
yeah.
John Paul, which are the houses that have already been started?
The first two on the left.
Okay.
1 and 2, you mean?
No, 9 on the left.
12
On
and
the left when you
11.
go in.
Left for me
I love
is
you.
1 and 2.
11 and 12.
I'm sorry.
11 and 12. Yeah,
Sorry.
I know what you meant.
You mean
Those two.
11 and
The
12?
The first two?
Yes.
11 and 12.
I'm sorry, the left is your go in.
Okay.
These two houses are under construction. This house has been moved so that it's not like this, to be farther away from this wetland.
Yeah, and that would give you a corridor
What
for
is
access.
beyond this, the edge of?
There's another 4 or 5 lots up there, houses.
No, but, okay, but,
This is the Merritt Parkway.
right.
We could look at a map,
So
Google
where
map.
does it-
I go out in here, I can take it.
Yeah.
They come together up there somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is state land from here. This is the tail of state land here.
Okay, that's state land.
Yeah, here, let me see if I've got a,
Yeah, John Paul, I can provide that information
okay.
to Barbara, because I think we've
Excuse me.
used up our
Sure,
allotted
sorry.
time.
Oh, whatever.
And I think, you know,
My
I,
time is your time.
come on in, find a microphone, make sure it's turned on with a
My
light.
time is your time.
Well, thank you for coming in tonight and explaining that for us.
yeah, that's helpful.
Um, So,
It's helpful.
It was helpful to see the map and go through it.
Whatever.
Thanks.
If you, like I said, the ask is whatever you decide. I have no say in this. I'm just a consultant. All I'm telling you is, from doing this for 35 years, open space without an end use is not worth. And I think we saw that back about 20 years ago when I first started doing this back in the late 70s, early 80s. We were taking parcels, towns were taking parcels all over the place. And all of a sudden, town engineers and public works directors were discovering that they had these isolated chunks spread willy-nilly everywhere with no rhyme or reason. And so towns started to start taking a closer look at what they get. And I'll give you an example. Milford. You could not give Milford open space. They want cash. There's some other towns in the state the same way. They want nothing to do with real estate. They want cash in lieu of. There are other towns, I think their open space like Bethany is 20%. You know, and Bethany is 42% water company. So, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to what we deal with in that. So you're more than welcome to ask, but parcels that have no end use, I think, create unnecessary issues for the municipality in which they lie.
mhm.
But more importantly, I think that you have to stay within the parameters of what we do. So I'll relay the message, but you know, if you guys come up with, you'll relay it to planning and zoning, we'll hash it out at planning and zoning. Because I think that's the venue where it has to get hashed out at.
We'll see. I mean, we have some time before it gets to planning and zoning,
You have, we were postponed for another month.
yes.
We should be able to close the public hearing and
And then
get a
35 days.
decision. I
Up
think we
to
should get a
35
decision that
days.
night.
Oh, you do?
I
Okay.
think so. I
That's-
think
all
that
right.
the commission
That's
was
good.
active last month, but we had some issues that we had to resolve.
Right.
They wanted to see a wetlands assessment,
Right.
which has been, it should be now, if you look at this, see a wetlands assessment, it's now in the wetlands office. And so if we get an approval on the next meeting, then we'll probably submit the next week or two.
John Paul, is there a map that shows the relocation of that Lot 9 house a little
Yeah,
further away?
that's part of the approved, there's now,
Is that up, posted up?
Well, that's on the, it's on the town website.
Is it on the website?
Yeah,
I'll
that's a
look for it
revised
then.
set of plans that were
Alright.
submitted.
Because I think that's, as I said, that there's, from the road, could be a
Yeah.
corridor there.
Along with all the supporting documentation, the wetlands assessments and everything else
Mhm.
are on the website. I think the only thing that's missing is the revised planting plan, which you had up there today.
Yeah, I picked that off the website.
And each,
I thought it was
each,
helpful.
each lot that's shown for a house has 5,000 square feet? Is that
Minimum,
minimum?
yeah, minimum.
Are they all the same
What's the
size
date
lots?
of
No,
that-
they're all
of
different.
that planning, what's the date of the planning and zoning meeting?
We haven't gone to P and Z yet. Wetlands is the
No.
third.
I'm saying, but didn't they say they were gonna do it next month?
No,
Oh.
if wetlands acts next month, then we
Oh.
would submit the P and Z.
Wetlands, okay.
Pretty close after, because all the paperwork has been done. We've done everything the wetlands has asked for, so I think there's very few revisions that need to be updated.
And are there any insights that we should know about from the wetlands? Because I know we were waiting on them for,
They were waiting for wetlands assessment, which is now part of the record. So if you want to read the wetlands assessment, you have it from the town's environmental analyst and our environmental analyst.
and there's an agreement between those two about what the wetlands are and their,
It's pretty much an agreement. The town's wetland
Consultant?
consultant wanted some additional plantings and some other stuff, but other than that, they were basically in agreement.
Did the final come in from the town's consultant? 'Cause that was a hang-up
I think that's all
last
there.
time we talked.
I think that's all there now.
okay.
Wait a minute, I apologize.
Yeah,
I think Martin Brogy's,
it hasn't been finalized.
unless
You-
it's
I
come in
think-
yesterday or today, I haven't seen it.
Right, you told me he was waiting for a soil analysis, I believe.
Yeah, Bill Kenny, who is our soil scientist, has submitted his final and his assessment.
Mhm.
I think Martin Brogy was waiting for that. And I think Chris told me that Martin, as of today's Thursday, so Tuesday, I think Chris told me she hadn't seen it. I wasn't in yesterday. I don't know if it came in, I hadn't called Chris. I didn't call Chris today.
When is the wetlands meeting?
But again, they were in agreement the last time.
It already occurred.
Oh, I thought you said that they were.
There's going to be
No.
another wetlands meeting?
Yeah, there's
Oh,
another
when
third
they
It's
Wednesday.
the
Finalize
third
it, I
Wednesday
guess.
of the month,
Yeah,
so
that's the
whatever that
final.
is on the calendar.
We expect it to close that night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John Paul, on behalf of the commission, I give you my great thanks for spending the time with us and
Yeah.
with a lot of
If
information.
you have questions, please call.
And we'll have to take it up in a discussion and see if, we'll continue to work with you, hopefully. And
John Paul, can I ask you a question? What's
Sure.
the size of lot 13 and lot 14? Is it listed somewhere on this?
No, it's not on that sheet, it's on James, wait a second, I'll find it. Lot 13 and 14.
The eastern one.
Lot 13 is 17,000 square feet, and lot 14 is 15,000 square feet.
so it's about 5 acres, the whole,
3.2 acres is the whole property,
2.2.
yeah. But
I found when I looked at, I was looking at the town GIS system in the summary
yeah, somewhere it's,
property sign.
And just for understanding, what's that square structure right off Merritt Avenue that's in white? To the, right
get-
before
let-
lot
let-
1,
what's that?
right
The
above
house.
lot 1.
It's
Is that
a
the
house.
house that's already existing there?
Yeah, there's an existing house on the,
Okay,
right where the road comes in off of Merritt
got it.
Avenue.
All right, thanks.
Did you find those acres? No?
Total?
Yeah.
Approximately 3.4.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. While John Paul rolls up, I will say that the next item on the agenda is public comment. There was no one attending, and I have not received any comments by
Thank you
email.
very much. Have a safe week and stay healthy.
Have a good,
Thank you.
good luck,
Bye-bye.
if I don't,
I'll talk to you before, sure, thanks a lot.
yeah, okay. I made a little faux pas here. The I believe Valerie was supposed to be taking minutes,
Oh, that's right.
and I had written that to her and then had forgotten to follow up on it. So we'll need someone to jot minutes. You're gonna raise your hand?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
You're our hero.
I'm
We
impressed.
do have a rotation, but
feel like I've
I will
skipped my
accept
turn.
volunteers. Everybody else is putting their head down, so.
Well, maybe we should tell you what has happened in the meeting already.
I know,
so you
right?
can-
Well, I in the spirit of, we had a good fact-finding discussion with John Paul. I mean, that is really the item. Okay, Diane, let me know that you're ready so that I don't.
But Tim, are you
Cause you
gonna
rush.
fill her in on the first part of the meeting with Jean Paul so she can include that in the minutes?
Well, I can try to recollect that and have that discussion, but
Okay.
it may be.
Or maybe I can do it.
Was there any action taken, or was
No.
it just
No.
a general discussion about?
It was
was
just
just
general discussion and
But what-
Information, really.
information sharing.
And what's the most opportune way to request 10% for the town?
And John Paul is from which commission again?
He's,
John Paul Garcia is a civil engineer. and
He's the
land
consultant for the
surveyor.
developer.
He
For
works with
Merritt.
the developer for the Merritt Avenue development. Okay.
No public comment?
All right, no public comment. Next item up is approval of the minutes of 4/21/22. I will make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. We'll need a second for that.
I'll
We can
second it.
discuss if there are any. Thank you, Barbara, for the seconding.
Just that there was a few extra pages to the minutes.
Yeah, what were
That came,
those?
well, I don't know why those came through, but I just.
Yeah.
There are
Mhm.
extra pages?
Yeah,
There
there
was
was
an attachment.
notes from the Arbor Haven proposal, like questions that were, somebody must have used the prior format or something.
Oh, okay.
And they
Well, I-
included a few
I missed
extra
that.
pages.
I just,
Yeah, we
Come
could
off.
take that off because when I printed them out, I also found that the only attachment I did was the attachment you sent me for somebody having access to the recording. So I have no idea how that got attached to it when I did the meeting minutes. But we can, should I pass it to him so Tim, you see what we
Yeah,
got
let me,
attached?
because I don't when I read the minutes, which I did, I don't recall seeing that, but I may have and just said, well,
Well, they wouldn't,
after the minutes.
It was several pages after the
there
minutes.
As well as everything
Okay.
else.
so I think it was a technical thing that you may have done, because when I gave them to you, I don't think I wouldn't have had any way to do that I know of. You don't have to know this.
yeah.
I know.
this
They
is-
didn't
this is
interfere
real.
with the minutes, they
Okay.
just were,
I read through them, I was
Alright,
trying to figure
so-
out what they were.
Any other discussion on the minutes? So let's call that motion, all in favor of accepting the minutes
Did
with
someone
the
second it?
subtraction of
Second, I'll second.
the
I did.
unnecessary attachment? Barbara seconded, had seconded already, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
It passes
With the unnecessary,
unanimously.
with taking out the
Subtraction,
unnecessary of the attachment.
Okay. The next item is meeting times. We had a discussion last meeting about trying to find a way to move the meeting earlier and just to give us an earlier start and an earlier finish, hopefully. I had contacted Diane after the meeting, so I know she's aware of this at least. Further looking into that, there was a possibility for us to switch our meetings to the first Thursday of the month.
Hey,
Hello, Valerie.
Valerie.
Have a seat.
Come in, find a seat, and just make sure the mic is turned on. Should have a red light on it. So, glad you made it just now for this discussion. And Valerie, if you want to move that mic just a little bit closer to you when you talk. There we go. So I did find out it is possible for us to move our meetings to the first Thursday of the month. Problem with the third Thursday and moving our starting time earlier at 7, for instance, is that the Finance Committee meets at 6, and we would run afoul of them if they went over. They're usually brief, I'm told, but there's no guarantee, and I've been here when they've been filing out. So Thursdays, on the third Thursday is a problem, but if we move to the first Thursday, we could begin at 7. And so I think I've checked with everybody. We talked about, seemed like everybody was okay starting at 7 time. So the question today is, would people be willing to meet on the first Thursday?
When would this start?
I would propose that because we need 2 months, I'm told, of a notice to not have special meetings, that since we're moving it up, it would start in August. And I'll ask you to do the honors again. That should be enough for everybody. Make sure I counted that right. Give you that in case I didn't count that right. So, and that's, if we made a motion and passed it tonight, then then I'd submit the paperwork to the town clerk, and we would start in August. Unless we chose to start some other month, but August was the soonest it could start.
I think the September 1st meeting would be hard for me to make. It means there's 3 meetings in the summer versus 2.
Do we normally keep do we keep all of the summertime meetings?
Yep, this commission always has.
Okay.
Well, in my experience, which is not long.
No, I think that sometimes we didn't do it in August, but
I would have to discuss it. I would have to discuss it with my employer, as I said to you, because they now have got me set on being free on the third Thursday, so it would
what if we
change
keep
everything.
it to the third Thursday, and if we're 10 minutes late and we have to wait for a few minutes to start once in a while, we do that once or twice a year?
It's an option.
What's the, sorry, why?
There's a finance committee meeting that meets from 6 to 7.
Oh, okay.
Well, they meet at 6 o'clock.
Oh, they meet at 6, and they
Right.
often don't go very
The
long.
whole point is trying to get it to start a little bit earlier, so.
I'm fine starting hours earlier if that's.
And,
But.
and we would if we could.
No, I know.
So, yeah, I mean, just looking for options, and this is an option, and waiting out in the hall could be an option.
Oh, because it's.
Others
the-
have
Well,
thoughts?
what,
I'm just
I
checking my
like
other
Sharon's thought
committee
on it.
meetings.
What are your thoughts?
It doesn't provide difficulty to me if, as long as it's after 7, the start time.
It
It's
doesn't
the
make
first
any
one or
difference.
the
Yeah.
first Thursday of the month or the
And
third.
Val, what about you?
I'm gonna defer to you, Barbara, as long as you're, okay, if you have the job, but.
I mean, we don't want to
Right,
create
we
problems
want it.
there.
Right,
Yeah.
I don't wanna create problems for you.
I mean, I think maybe we should just try, as Sharon suggests, try setting it for 7 o'clock on the third Thursday, which would be fine with everybody, I think. And if it doesn't work, if we get in too much trouble with it, then we'll have to think about changing it. And certainly given enough time, I mean, it's just scheduling that would have to be changed for my situation, I'm sure, if I say, starting in October, I really do have to switch things around, it's not gonna be that terrible. But we could try keeping it this way,
Is that?
but just meeting at 7 instead of,
And I bet there's access to the finance committee meetings to see their start and end time on their agendas, and we'll get us, easily look those up and see if they're.
I do not know their practice on their agenda. I've never looked at their agenda to tell
I
you
know,
the
but it
truth.
might
Well, it
just
would be in their
the-
meeting minutes when they adjourned, right?
Uh-huh.
If they-
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we,
Yeah.
if someone looks
Yeah,
for
they,
them.
they, what I'm told is they're usually finished by 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's a usually. Now, we're gonna be in the period of the year where they're less involved.
Mhm.
As they ramp up to the budget next year, then, you know,
Then they-
that's when they'll
Sure.
tend to go longer. Okay, so I'm getting a sense that people are okay being held up. 'Cause my sense is that they will
We'll
not,
bring chocolate chip cookies.
they will not adjourn for us. That's my sense, I don't.
Right. And nor should they.
Well,
Um,
I'm not sure if it's, see, I think, and this, I'll have to see this when I make this change, because I'll have to revise the schedule to start at 7. They may not let me start it at 7. I got a little pushback so far, saying it's gonna be at 7 because of the finance meeting. So-
Okay, well, you can report back if that's the case.
Okay. That seems to be the sense. Okay, let me give that a try.
And that 7 o'clock would start in August also, right? Or could it start,
Well, yes,
month.
that would have to be the same amount of notice, to have it not be a special meeting.
Okay, well, these nights are late anyway. It's easier in the summer to make it a little later than earlier as the sun gets less.
Okay. Okay, item number 5.
So we agree to keep the original Thursday, we're just gonna try to make it a
original.
little earlier.
We're just
Right.
gonna try to
we're
be,
gonna try just to change the time.
Got it.
And that would start in August.
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
not the date on that,
But
because whatever the regularly
whatever
scheduled date is.
60 days would take us to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause actually, we could start it in July, because,
That's 60 days.
let's say August, just to make it easier, because I'd have to count the days, because it's on the 3rd Thursday, I don't know what the 3rd Thursday is. And depends, it might be more than 60 days, it might be less, just depends
Well,
on,
July is, we've got the 60-day clearance.
we'd have 60 days if I wrote the note tomorrow.
Yeah, because it's May 19th, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be July 21st.
Mhm.
So if I wrote the note tomorrow,
Posted it tomorrow.
I'd be okay.
Yeah, you'd be all right.
Yeah, as long as they
You
posted
can
it
just let
tomorrow.
us know.
Yeah, and if
Yeah,
not,
I would certainly,
we're
well, you have
looking-
2 months to let you know, so.
and if not, August 18th.
Okay, so now we have a question. Do you want to start in July or start in August, the 7th?
The earlier the better for me, so.
Okay, so let's try for July. I'll do that tomorrow morning.
So this is now,
It'll be the 3rd Thursday in July,
Which is the 21st.
which is already the
It already
meeting day.
is.
It's
These
just be,
dates reflect the
just
first
be a half an hour
Yeah,
earlier.
these are the first.
What are you saying, we're gonna keep it to the 3rd Thursday, to start earlier?
Right, okay. Oh, it's 7 o'clock.
So these dates don't apply.
They don't.
Okay. Next item is on the agenda, the box electronic repository. We had talked about that many months ago. I resent that link out for people to look at, and the question on the table is the proposal to adopt that as just a repository for the Historical Conservation Commission documents and any new documents that we were to create and want to make available, number one, to each other for easy access as we perhaps work on documents, and number two, to the public as a historical record. So, again, I've had a couple chances, I think, to to look at that. Hopefully, you've all had a chance to go up and look there. We had some questions last time. So I guess we can entertain any other questions about the box, and then
I have a question. Is the town in agreement? And
I had discussions with Betsy Yagla. After it was constructed with the documents we got from Jason, I showed it to her, and she said, yeah, okay. She just wants to know once we, what the link is, so she can post it on the town website, because since it is public information, the town needs access to it. So I told her once we had approval within the commission, I'd send her that same link that I sent you. Now that'll be the public link. That's a read-only link. Once we approve it and we're going, I'll just create a sign-on so that all of you can add documents and edit documents, or download them when you need them, etc.
So everything that the commission creates or utilizes will be in this box?
I'm going to say a tentative yes. I can't think of an example where, certain things that,
this would be on there?
Yeah, that we could upload it, things that
And who's
we
responsible for uploading
think
it?
would be useful, we would upload. Like our open space plans, I mean, those are, that's what we do. Would I take every single scrap of paper we use? No. I think we be judicious about what has lasting value. And I think
What
that,
about the materials that Jason gave you?
I think with the siren I lost you, Barbara, so
Sorry. What about the materials that Jason gave you historically?
those are all the ones I loaded up.
They
Those
are
are all the
all
ones that
loaded
are
up.
there.
Okay.
In fact, I don't want, my mind is cloudy. Jason ended up loading some himself because the thing didn't get loaded the first time. Yeah. Those are-
Okay, so
he's
one way or
got
another,
everything.
there
Yep.
are or were or will be on there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions on box?
Is box similar to like Dropbox?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Are
very
there
much the
any
same.
other, do you know whether there are any other commissions or
Any other
commissions or boards or whatever within the town that use this?
doing this?
system?
No. I do not know of any.
Interesting.
I know, like in, the town of Brantford, we typically use Dropbox for a lot of that stuff, and then you can send links. Is it easy enough to share a link to Box with folks?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a link you can send out that we'll use for the just read access for the town, and then there's other links that we'll use that will allow us to go in and load documents and so forth, or log on.
Is there a fee to subscribe to Box
Under a certain amount of, right now, I can't,
for the
I don't know
amount
what
of
the
data
company
we
will do
have?
in the
Will there be a
future,
charge?
but right now, under a certain amount of storage, it's free.
So for what we expect to use, it would still be free?
Yeah, for the,
Do you know what the limitation is on the storage?
I don't remember off the top
Okay,
of my head.
just curious.
Yeah.
As long as people who are looking for the information, the public can see it, I don't have an issue with it. But we just need to make sure that people are able to access it. I mean, it's good for us to have a source to share documents,
Yeah.
but it's equally as important for the public to see if we're supposed to post something that they can view it too.
The town website has some capability to have documents on it, but it's not streamlined and as easy as Box. And the structure of the folders is something that made sense to me. As you look at it and use it and you see it should be changed, we can change out around the structure to make it easier. And okay, then I would like to make a motion that we, Conservation Commission, adopt Box for our historical archive.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Paul. Any further discussion?
Just love a tutorial on how to use it.
Right.
I think there is one up there.
Well,
on the-
I'd love
on
it
the
by
site.
you. You seem like the expert on it, Tim.
Right.
So we know how to use their
Yeah, but,
organization.
and again, if we need to have a session, we'll have a session. I mean, we can-
Well, I
we
think
can
that's
do
a
that.
really good point, because it's only
Yeah,
as
it
good
is a
as
good
we
point.
can use it, and I'm not familiar with even using Dropbox, so
Uh,
for it to be useful,
Yeah.
it would, I'd need
But,
to
And
learn.
I do have another question about it.
Yeah.
Within our group's link, are we able to change anything that's inbox? Can we, I mean, would
The
it be
commissioners
possible
have
to edit
access to
things or
edit, yeah.
whatever? Is that,
There's sophistication enough to create multiple levels of access. I'm not inclined to do that, so that it doesn't become an administrative burden. I'm inclined to say it's, here's the access, and with the access you can typically, load documents. You can delete documents that you've loaded, that type of thing, and you could probably download someone else's documents, and if you upload them, they become just another. If you can upload a new version of a document, so there's a little document control. But I like to operate on a trust basis that we're not going to write over important documents. But there is some versioning there, so you can reach back and get some older documents.
Question.
Yes.
So would the administrator of the system be like a town employee? Would it be like Betsy or somebody, and then we?
It would be us. The box would belong to the Conservation Commission. We'd be assuming that for the Conservation Commission. It's just a place to have, before, Jason, the former chairman, he just had all these files that he probably inherited some of, and no one could get to them other than him. So this is an attempt to say they don't belong to Jason, they don't belong to Tim, they belong to the town, and let's put them in some place where everybody in town can get to them.
Yeah. So then my follow-up to that would be, then we would want to make sure that there's either the town clerk or somebody in the town who has the administrative, electronic keys, if you will.
Yeah.
So
I
that
mean,
as members come and go from the
that
commission.
if all of us get hit by a bus
Exactly.
on the same road trip, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
no, sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's a reasonable thing. To expect the town to
Not to manage it, yeah. no.
administrate it for us, I
We
think
don't need to
is a
make more
step too
work
far.
for anybody.
Okay,
And then
yeah.
to post access or post a direct link on whatever our
Well, that-
page is
Well,
of the town.
the town
so
That's
website
what I
under-
mentioned
under
with
yeah.
Betsy, that Betsy wanted the link so she could post it on the town website under the Conservation Commission so people can get to it.
So let me ask you a question,
This
Tim.
actually, excuse me, well, this actually, I think, saves the town some work.
Yeah,
Because, Betsy said, well, we can post the documents on the town website. And I said, Betsy, you want all 783 documents? You want me to send you them? No. So I think there will be some savings. Sorry, Paul.
So is your idea for us to be able to collaboratively work on a document, say for instance, if we were doing a
like
a
letter.
grant
A grant,
application
yeah,
or something,
yeah.
is that the vehicle we would use to collaboratively work on it?
I think Kate is going to bring us through an experiment with sheets. And there are similar products for collaborating on documents online.
Like Google Sheets. and so
Google
forth.
Docs and all that.
So,
Okay.
Really
Kate,
So no,
and
okay.
Kate told me she will be getting this up in the next week or so, was going to put up a Google Sheets to collect a list of grants that we knew about.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's one way to collaborate. you could use Box to collaborate, and we could have the document there, and then when I go to change it, I change it, and I upload a version, and somebody else does, and that's a little more clunky.
Yeah.
So I think the Google approach could work, but I think we're gonna feel our way through that, so you know, make sure that works. But there are some things where, you know, maybe we're collaborating on multiple, in an area where there's gonna be multiple documents, we each do a document and then it goes up in a common area.
Yeah, or maybe like the purpose of Box is to hold like the final version
Yeah,
of
yeah,
documents.
that's what I see as, I've used the term electronic repository, but then been kind of scolded on the technical, too many technical words there, so. But it's a repository in the end.
Yeah.
That's the best use of it.
So as new members come, they
Yeah.
can have some continuity.
Exactly.
Right.
Before we discuss.
You hit it, Valerie. I
Exactly.
mean, it's a great place to say, you know, here's 3 or 4 documents you should go and read, just go to Box, and they're right there. You don't have to clog your email, we don't have to go find them. I know where the latest copy is, the latest, greatest, it's there. So we have a motion on the table. If there's no further discussion, so I think there's no other discussion, we'll call the motion. All those in favor of using Box as our electronic repository?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, looks, and nays? All are in favor, Diana? And the motion passes, thank you. As is apparent, moving on to the liaison report, David Lober is not here with us tonight. And he did send me a brief recap of the Board of Selectmen last meeting. I looked through it, I didn't see anything of great import there that wouldn't wait, and I since I wouldn't be able to answer the questions you might have, I think I defer, and there's no reason he can't cover the 2 months in our next meeting.
Did he share the report with the rest of us?
No, he sent it to me, and I can forward it on, certainly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would.
I mean,
That might save us
it's just
time
a
from-
simple list. So
Mhm.
let me make a note. Okay. The next item are member comments and items for our next meeting. Unlike some other months, I'd like to at least kick this one off. I already mentioned that Kate was going to set up the grant list sheets within the next week. I assume she'll send an explanatory note and maybe recap what we're supposed to do with it, hopefully so. Is somebody else working with her on that? Or she was going to take that first step, I think, herself, and we'll go from there. Second, there was a question and a couple numbers thrown out. What was the open space balance on the town's books? I went back to my notes, and the last time that I talked to Tony Genovese, it was some months ago now, but I trust it'll be the same amount. At that time, the balance was $72,254.86. So a little over 70,000, I guess, would be the way to try to remember that one, rather than remember it to the penny. And as I understood from him, that number doesn't change.
Right, I heard that too.
Mhm.
I asked him if we get the interest.
Much to my chagrin, yes.
Which is interesting, maybe that should be when he comes, we should ask him about that.
What do you mean by it doesn't change?
We don't get interest, we don't get any.
It doesn't
don't
accrue
get
interest,
interest.
or if it does, it doesn't go
Yeah.
to that account.
Any fund balances from various commissions' budgets are invested in common,
Mm-hmm.
and this is my understanding, and I could be wrong, no expertise here. And the interest goes back to let me just say the town, I'm gonna say the general fund perhaps, but Tony
Mm-hmm.
can be more specific if we ask him when we're here. That was a change some years ago, I'm told, I can't remember.
Okay, but if we were to spend 50,000 on an acquisition, then our balance would be 22.
25486.
How and when and where and what do we get it built up again?
And that, I think, is a great question, one that I would like to ask Tony to address with us, which is a
How did
great
this-
segue to my next item.
Funding.
Right.
No.
I was going to do something else first, but it was such a good segue, I'm going to digress on that one. I'd like to have Tony in either next month or the month after. There's, I just lost the name. There was a person that I might have intention of inviting.
Amy?
Amy Morella.
Thank you. I just lost it. And I'm going to try for Amy, but if I can't get Amy, I may be able to get Tony on short notice. He said he'd come and just to let him know, and I think he may have a little more flexibility than Amy. So I'd like to, if we do member comments in just a minute, go around. If I have keeping a list of questions for Tony, if there's something you'd like him to address that hasn't been mentioned, you haven't heard us mention, then throw it out and I'll, because I'd like to prep him with the types of things we want him to talk to. So we'll go around with member comments, and if you have something.
And Amy's topic would be the Greenway? Is that what she talked to us about, her experience with it?
Partly, but it's more, it's a little more general. What's the Conservation Commission? How does she view it? What does she think we should be doing at this juncture? In the world, 20 years on from when she was involved in the commission, and her perspective now, and then Greenway, whatever Greenway questions. I did spend a chunk of time with Amy on the Greenway, so I've picked her brain on that. And she has some limited memory on that at this juncture, but she has a good perspective on the town and how things work, and how do we build up the funds. Might be an interesting question for her too. So we thought she'd provide some perspective. Okay. And then Barbara, would we expect for next time that be any type of report back on trees? Should I plan on that with the with
We
the other
have not
members?
even
We haven't met
considered
yet.
meeting.
Yeah, we
Pardon?
haven't met yet, but I did
have not
follow up with the person from Westport, and I haven't heard back from her yet, but I thought we could set up a phone call just to get some benchmarking data in terms of what her experience is, what they found out, what they discussed and debated, so that we kind of start, we've got a good start with it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the person that's heads up their planning and zoning commission. That's where it would be, I guess that regulation would be in Westport. So I have not heard back from her yet. I just emailed her. I haven't heard back yet, but
Okay, just let me know if
Sorry, I
there's
missed the
time on the
title of
agenda
that
for next
topic.
time as I plan the agenda.
it's the tree ordinance. we're talking about possibly
Oh, I
doing a
think
tree
I'm-
ordinance.
Okay, yeah.
And Westport had last year discussed or debated possibly doing a tree ordinance also. So my thought was, I talked to the tree warden about a month ago or so in Westport, and he said they hadn't done anything. So I reached out to the person who heads up their planning and zoning commission, which is the person that was quoted in that news article, and try to get some input from her, or some experience information from her in terms of what they discussed and what the issues were.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just before I send it around to everybody, the things some of the items I have from Tony are talking about grants, you know, who works on them for the town, how do they administrate them? What are, if you can give us some background on grants and aid. It's an open question, it's in this document, but I thought he might have some knowledge of that. If he could just give us any general background on the town open space and the acquisition of open space, and how it's funded in town. Those types of questions.
Well, I would like him to take us through the, you know, if we find a piece of land we want,
What's the process?
what's the process? Like, A, we talk to him, B, we talk to Betsy Agles, C, we fundraise, then we submit the grant. I mean, or first we go to, you know, like.
What's the process?
What is the
basically?
process? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
really broken down so that we can know
Okay,
what to do step by step.
step by step. Yeah, that's just
Right.
what I was writing. Okay? Well, Sharon, you started, so any other
Yeah,
comments as we?
on that score or?
Well,
I
on
have
that
other
score, or
questions.
just in general, just
Well, I
as a
have
roundtable.
Three things that I'm wondering about for comments. One is, has our budget been approved through the Board of Finance? And has it been passed? Do we know that?
The town,
Has to vote on it?
but the town budget on Wednesday evening was passed.
Okay, so we have more money than we've had before.
Yes,
Do we have a scribe in our budget now?
yes.
Okay.
Apparently, last I knew it was there,
Okay,
July 1st.
okay, cool.
Is when
Yay.
the budget year starts, I believe.
Excellent.
Is there something we need to do in preparation of that July 1st or July 21st meeting to make sure that we have somebody in that position?
We will need to find out who that person's gonna be.
Okay.
Is that
Okay.
something done through like HR at the town, or does it have to be posted, or?
And I'll get in touch with my contact person.
There we go. Thank you. Okay.
The second thing is, and I haven't seen it in writing myself, but the Town Affordable Housing Committee has sent a report, and two of the key properties there, I think from what I understand, the first and second, is a Fitzgerald property and a property right as part of the church. And I think we need to talk about that as a group on our next meeting, and see how we feel about that, and see if there's any action that we should be taking as a
I think they
commission.
had also talked about the country club property too.
And the country
So I
club
mean, there's
property.
very few, I would say, illogical locations that they've suggested that they could put this. I mean, and I think there's a gross misunderstanding in what the regulation requires too. And it doesn't require the town to build affordable housing. It just changes the criteria a developer would have to satisfy to be able to have a development approved if it was affordable. If the town has less than 10%, which 132 towns in Connecticut have less than 10% affordable housing, then the developer could come in and propose to build a development and not follow the current zoning because it's going to be affordable housing. But if the town has more than 10%, then they have to follow the zoning regulations. That's the only difference. And so,
This is
you know, I think from what I understand from some of the TV things I've seen in TV and some of the newsletters, saying that the town is under some obligation to build affordable housing is not true, and it's really disinformation. And, you know, having important pieces of property in town being considered for something that is not even a state requirement is pretty silly.
So I think it's worth us understanding better and understanding how we can, what we choose to do about that.
Yeah, this statute is 830G. I mean, people should become familiar with it because there's a lot of disinformation in town.
Maybe you could send us around 830G, or somebody could send it to us as a possibility, so we get more informed.
Sure, I think that would be a good idea.
Sharon,
There's,
Yeah?
I'm sorry, Paul, were you finished?
yes, about that
Yeah.
topic, yes.
So Sharon, just to clarify, the housing report has been submitted to the
Yes,
town?
and I understand that it's gonna be discussed at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. I mean, this is, someone should verify, because I just heard it from a friend who has been in touch with Beth and different people, but I may be wrong about the dates.
Okay, because I would wanna, before we discuss it, make sure it's been
Yeah.
submitted, so
Yeah.
we
It
can
has been
get
submitted,
it and read it.
it's
Okay,
attached to the last newsletter
Yeah.
that's sent out. It's 96 pages long.
okay, missed
Okay,
it.
and
Came
it's-
through on the
Yeah, I-
emails. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess editorial comment, it's due in June. That's a statement of fact, not editorial. But it seemed to go very quickly here at the end to having a report. There was, the public input into it seemed to be limited here at the end. I know there was one meeting at the JCC, but during the formulation of the report, didn't see very much. So I'm anxious to see it myself.
Okay, so, and Paul made me think of this in terms of, Paul, you might want to comment on this more than I, but there's been a lot of talk about open space, and Paul brought up to me that how much of that's actually protected, and that might be a good thing for the commission to have as data. And I don't know quite where to find all that information, but I think we should distinguish between the amount of space that's open and the amount that's protected.
I
Well-
think
Is
the
it right in there?
statistics, yeah, I think you're right. The statistics are something
It's,
I've seen in, I don't know if it was a newsletter that they quoted 25% of the town is open space. Well, there is maybe 25% of the town is undeveloped land. It hasn't been developed, but only 6% of it is protected property.
very little is protected.
Very, very,
So I
very
think
little.
that's-
So it
And
just
for
hasn't been
instance, all
developed
of
yet.
almost all of the water company property is considered open space, but it's not protected at all. The water company can do whatever they want with it.
Okay.
So the portion, there's a process for the water company.
Fitzgerald property, everybody thinks is protected. It's not protected at all.
It's not protected. So the percentage of actual protected open space, which is
Is
really what open space
very
is, it's much, much smaller. It's only about 6% of the total landmass of Woodbridge. It's not 25%. I mean, there may be 25% property in town that hasn't been developed yet, but, and some of the water company property would be challenged to develop because there's a process for that, but it doesn't say that it can't be developed. So to quote, there's 25% open space in town is misleading to quote that statistic.
Disingenuous.
Right.
And the last thing I wanted to bring up is, when are we gonna discuss the Merritt proposal?
Yeah, we need to entertain that question, so.
I think it would be really helpful, Tim, on the Merritt Avenue proposal is to get a copy of what the town ordinances or regulation in terms of what the Planning and Zoning Commission can request as open space. Because I heard you
We-
say something about, you have
That
it.
was sent, Paul, I know I sent this to you specifically, but I think sent it to everybody.
Mhm.
These are the regs.
Okay. Well, I'll have to read through it, but
Chapter 8. Chapter 8 of the Planning and Zoning, page 24.
I wish I had in front of me to refer to, but I understood
You can
read
borrow
it.
this is my copy.
Okay, thanks.
But
Isn't that what you just read?
I vaguely remember on the Wetlands Commission that
Thank you.
I think we really, I mean, I'm not sure who should be directing in terms of what land we require. I'm sure that the developers don't want us to request anything that interferes with their development. On the other hand, you know, our job is to protect open space,
Okay.
and I'm not sure that, I just
Sharon?
want to make sure we're doing that as well as we can.
Okay. I'd like, before we start down that discussion,
okay.
I'd like to, finish this topic.
Yep, I think
And
I'm
then,
done.
and then, make a decision if we want to have that discussion right now and just add it
Okay.
into as a agenda item, which may make sense, just see where we have to go. Thank you, Sharon. Barbara, anything, comments?
I just wanted to bring up that I, having discovered after our last meeting from you that the map that you had here, the colored one that is the most expressive of the open spaces and who owns them and what else is in town, like gas lines and electric lines and so forth, was done by a man named Ronald Hedberg, who a lot of people around might remember Phyllis, who just died, and
Yes.
it was her husband who did it. He was a geologist, and their son is still here. And I talked to him further about it, and he is slowly going through the house, and he will find any notes or anything about creating that map that he can, and
Yeah.
other things around town that his father might have done. It was done purely as gratis because he loves
Right.
maps and wanted to do it. I think the question, well, not question, but the result of our discussion, which could be a little embarrassing, but isn't, was that he would be delighted to furnish us with those notes, but he'd like the notes really in the end for us to have copies or whatever, but the historical part of them to go down to the Historical Society. But that we have total access
Yeah.
to them and make
That's-
copies
yeah,
of
that's
whatever
wonderful.
we want, whatever he finds. He doesn't know.
Yeah, he doesn't know what
He
he's gonna
doesn't
find,
know
yeah.
at this point.
I think that's wonderful, and I appreciate your reaching out and doing that for us.
And he may have done other things too,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, that's
which
why I'm interested.
Billy doesn't know either, but he
Yeah.
will get to his father's office in time. It's not gonna be next month.
Right.
It will eventually come
Understandable.
to us. And in conjunction with that, because Kate brought up at the last time, because I keep grousing about this little tiny piece of land that I gave to the Park Association, and why wasn't it any place? Well, the first logical thing is, it isn't on any of the maps because the maps are all much older. And second, and Kate said, well, I think you have to list it with the town or something. That's not true. It is listed with the town. It's part of the record, but it doesn't have to be done to get on the maps because we're doing the maps. So I have asked both the Park Association and the Land Trust to give us, or me, the latest copies of what they have, what they own and so forth, so this can be helped in creating or updating the maps that we have.
Okay,
Great.
So,
all right, good.
not too much has changed, but there has been some changes, some additions, et cetera, so we can just keep going with that.
Diane, any comments?
No, I was just in shock about Phyllis.
About the what?
About
Really?
Phyllis, when you
Yeah.
said that, I was just in shock about that. so.
Oh, you didn't realize?
No,
Oh, I'm so sorry,
No,
I
no,
didn't know that.
glad I have a mask on. Okay.
Any comments, items for the agenda next time? This is just a round table we do occasionally to give people a chance to,
It would be
Go
good to
beyond the-
continue the discussion of the Greenway. You know,
Excuse-
Yeah,
to continue the discussion of the Greenway,
That's on
Um,
tonight's agenda.
what,
of
Oh,
the
We
Greenway.
need to,
I'm
next
sorry.
time.
we,
To continue the discussion of the greenway, so we can start to map out what we might propose.
You're saying we should continue our discussion?
We should continue it,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that's the next agenda item, or it was supposed to be, but we may have to digress to Merritt Avenue. We'll talk about that, so.
Valerie?
Valerie, you have any
Yeah.
comments? Okay, all right. So, yeah, I had sent out, Paul's points, I had sent out the Greenway description and plan. I was hoping we could spend a chunk of time. It took us a little longer with John Paul than I thought. It seems like that needs a discussion. And so my sense is we should do that discussion. I'd like not to go past 9:30. I feel like I want to get to this a little
Do we have
bit.
to add to that, should I move to add that as a
Yeah,
discussion? And
yeah. Yeah, I think that would be a smart thing, at least get
Okay,
initial discussion underway.
I move that we
but
have a
I second
Merritt
that.
Avenue subdivision discussion. As it
I don't
relates.
think we have to come to a
Okay.
conclusion, but we start the discussion on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I second that.
okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of adding the Merritt Avenue discussion, follow-up discussion, the agenda? Looks like it's
Tonight's
six.
agenda.
Unanimous.
Yeah.
Yes.
6 ayes and no nays.
Got it.
Counted right, yep. Okay, so we'll do that.
We could do that now.
Yeah, we'll do that now.
So reading
Yeah.
through these regulations, I know that Chris Sullivan, when she came in, and Valerie also mentioned it, that property that we can request should be representative of the total development area or the land.
Yeah, that
it's-
is in there.
It is, okay, I don't see it, okay.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm-
I know you're skimming through fast, but I recall that being in there.
Okay.
A representative, strikes me it's up towards the top, but, yeah.
So, I don't understand if this was just a blank slate without their template on it, and we thought, what land would we most want? And then we make a decision based on that. Now there's this very clear template, and is that what we're working with, or are we working with the reality of it as just a piece of land that we'd like to save 10% of? Because I can see from John Paul's perspective that he doesn't want his plan disrupted, and he's put a lot of time and energy into it. He's always very convincing, and he speaks
Yeah.
eloquently.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that
Well-
that's the agenda, or if it's like, okay, if we had this piece of land, is it that even though there might be some changes to the drainage because of the change in the highway, would we want to maintain the corridor, an open corridor for animals and wildlife to get to the pond? Or do we want, it just seems to me that this corridor's already going to be protected because they kind of have to.
Absolutely.
You're talking about the corridor along the river.
Yeah.
Right.
Why do you?
And I also just one more
why-
thing, people were so upset about the idea of creating a pathway there. I'm not sure
It's
sure about it.
It's basically junk land. It's nothing that can be buildable. If we were supposed to pick or request land that's representative of the parcel, we should pick some land that's buildable and some land that's wetlands that's not buildable, as opposed to, the property
Well-
that's being proposed, regardless of what the square footage of it is
Well, then they're not
essentially
allowed.
useless land. It has no recreational value. I look at the map and I think some of the lots that are up close behind somebody's home, like lot 12 or lot
7?
lot 12 or lot 13.
Lot 13.
Lots like that, if they were to be used for recreational purpose, those lots would be, much easier to be used as recreation because they don't have wetlands on them. So that they could actually be used, and it would also provide somewhat of a buffer to the existing neighbors, which I think they would probably appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
Paul-
13 and 12 are already mostly built, just FYI.
No, 12 and 11 are.
12 and 11.
Oh, 12
yeah.
and 11, that's
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
12 and
Thirteen
11.
hasn't been,
So
But
13
13.
hasn't, but, you know, if you look at, I don't know if we can necessarily consider the impact on the neighbors, but, you know, I personally can't ignore that, but I would say that if we're supposed to look at property that might have some recreational value, clearly what's being proposed has zero recreational value.
And also,
And it's
eight,
protected, again, to your
eight
point.
and nine could be a recreational value and also do a more of a wetlands buffer.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're supposed to be looking at things that have recreational value.
That's what this says, it could be used for recreational value.
Well,
Generally, in open space
open
parking
space.
areas containing less than 1 acre, it says.
Sorry, passive recreational value, I think is what
Yeah.
Paul
Yeah,
was
I mean-
referring to.
yeah,
I don't
I
think
mean,
he's
it,
suggesting we
you know,
build a.
it could be land that could be used, or land that could be used for recreation, it could be land used for just open space.
Yeah, the Elderslie didn't
And-
have a criteria that it had to have access and
No,
all this stuff. I don't
this
know
is
where
what
that comes from.
concerned me about John Paul, and he's certainly privy to his own feelings, but it seems to me that we as a commission, open space for the sake of being open space.
Right.
Yeah, he did not
is
have
a
that point of view.
a very important thing.
I mean, as we
Um,
talked about, you know,
Yeah.
for the country club property, the climate change issues, carbon sequestration, all those things are really valid concerns. And it would be
And-
nice if the property was able to be used by the residents too.
Right, and the, you know, the fact of open space just containing the flora and fauna and so forth, and they don't necessarily always have to have a corridor attaching them to others. It's very nice, but it certainly doesn't negate the value of open space.
I agree with
I-
that.
You know, in terms of these regulations, and I'll get to you in a second, I think they're written to try to, I don't know that they're adhered to the letter of what's written by planning and zoning. I think those regs were written to try to prevent developers, you know, from just giving you the worst of the worst parts of the parcels
Well,
that they're developing.
Which is what we heard tonight. So
Yeah,
the first item is, the commission may require a tract of land to be subdivided. It shall reserve open spaces, park and recreational areas at the proportionate rate of 10% of the gross acreage to be subdivided. So I mean, it talks about open space, park and recreation areas in proportion to 10% of the gross acreage. So, I mean, I think, you know, looking at lots that are buildable, that people could have a recreation area on, is a valid concern too.
Maybe it would be wise to talk to Chris Sullivan about this too, because she has a lot more experience than we do in terms of if it would be even plausible to, you know, suggest increasing the wetlands buffer and not having 8 and 9, or increasing the
Well-
open space by not having a 13 or 14.
You know, those were comments we would make during public comment session to the Inland Wetlands Commission.
What do you mean what? Say that again?
Well, Inland Wetlands has, they're in public hearing status. So if you have,
But-
if there are comments as to concerns about the buffers, those can be made to the Inland Wetlands.
But Tim, even if inland wetlands only has a certain amount that it can require, but certainly we
Right.
know by common sense, the more buffer a wetland has, the better it is. So
Yeah.
if we get to have 10%, why not choose it so we optimize that?
Okay, so.
So it's
and-
not,
and-
I mean, do you think that means that we have to go through inland wetlands to do
No,
that?
no, that was.
Okay,
You're suggesting might have to, we could talk to Chris. And Chris supports inland wetlands, that brought my mind
oh, I
to
see.
inland wetlands. You know, we, you know, the reason we've been waiting to make a request is to understand the nature of the wetlands up in the top right corner, the northeast corner. And I think we're pretty much there to understanding it. The reports have come back. There's one soil report that has to be finalized. But I come back now, and Diane, I haven't forgotten about you. I
That's
come
okay.
back and say, well, why not, even though according to John Paul it'd be more than 10%, why not ask for both? Why not ask for along the river and the wetlands area that's north of the fence?
My suggestion is we wouldn't ask for the river because we're gonna get it anyway.
No, you will not, that land will be owned by the developer,
And never be able to do anything with, so
yes, but.
as a result, it'll be the same outcome.
But the town could do something with it.
What could the town do?
What could the town do with the,
The town could
Make a
make a linear park out
make
of
a
it
linear park or a trail.
for the residents of the neighborhood and the trail, and it's an important connection point for the trail,
it's gonna
For the-
be, I mean,
for the West River.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's gonna be as shown anyway, because they've got, retention basin between
But you
the
have
river
no,
and the house. What's
you
that?
have no rights to do anything with that land. Unless it's deeded to the town, you have no rights to go set a foot on that property.
Let me ask, is the West River Coalition trying to get anything or do anything for their trail connecting?
They have built out their trail, where Pond Lily Dam was, and the trail goes through what was the former New Haven Land Trust through the property of the New Haven Land Trust that now has merged with someone else, has a different name. But that trail comes in behind, a lot of the housing, and then where the hotel is, doesn't quite come up to the hotel. They haven't finished it. So they recognize that if this connection was available, they could complete that trail and then go further along the West River. And they would be happy about that, because they know it's a connection
But they're
along
not-
along
it's-
the watershed.
Is it in their sights to try to acquire it or use it or whatever?
The Watershed Coalition is a coalition. They do not act as an entity. They are a collection of entities working towards common purpose, which is the protection of real brief, the protection of the West River watershed area. And so they rely on their quote unquote, member organizations to act. So we would be one of the, Woodbridge, the town is part of the coalition, but we as Conservation Commission are acting towards their purpose, to support their purpose and their goals, and there are other entities as well.
I think the reality of it, Tim, just to go back to your point about having this along the river be required to be open, I don't think that's going to be something that the developer is going to push back on. He's not going to want to own land that he's never going to be able to do anything with, and he's going to pay property taxes from now into eternity. So
Well,
if there's,
he's going to, if he doesn't deed it to us, he's going to.
that's right.
Unless he can sell it to someone, and I don't know how you sell that.
No, you can't.
Yeah, I
There's
mean, I don't know
no-
how wide that is, but just
So-
looking at it, it's.
My concern is that if you make it a pathway, I mean, all the pathways I've seen in that area have so much litter and so much more likely to create a degradation of that environment than a benefit. And I also concur with Paul, it's like, once something is a wetlands and there's gonna be no houses and and it's protected land, the guy will go, okay, you can have a path there.
You can have,
The developer.
he may, but
may.
that's
So
the
I
case.
guess, are
He
we
may.
beholden, I mean, which is more important, to protect the wetlands and decrease the amount of general incursion and leave this land without a trail because it's gonna be protected anyway? Or to make sure there's a trail there so that people can connect, either hikers or, as the locals are concerned about, it's access from places where they maybe wouldn't want the access to be so easy. I really,
As you heard, my suggestion was to ask for both. Because I think
know,
there's
but I
value,
think-
I think there's value in both.
I just am concerned that if we ask for
For
both.
both, we're only gonna get half of what we
they're
asked
gonna-
for.
They're gonna say, oh, yeah, you can
That's my
have what you,
concern too.
yeah, so,
I mean, I
Well,
agree
and
with you if we could.
that is, excuse me, Paul, that is why you try to come to an agreement with John Paul and the developer before you go to zoning. Because if they go in and say, you know, or Conservation Commission, we've had discussions and we've all agreed to this, then you have what you have.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
why-
yeah. And I think that if we go in with, to John Paul, who's a very good negotiator, I've worked with him for years, that if we go with both, he goes, oh, you get half. You're doing great. We just gave you the half that you wanted. You know, we can't change this.
Well,
You don't,
But if we only say we want this, then you might have to modify things a little bit.
Yeah,
But I don't really know. I've never done this with the Conservation Commission stuff, so I'm not sure
Diana,
what's the best way.
I know you had your hand up before I wanted to.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. You know, it's kind of an interesting discussion about, you know, number one, do we add, like, which side of the area we're talking about? Do we add a pathway here? What could be some negative impacts based on the location? Or does that do something to improve the area further and hopefully, you know, deter behavior like that? You know, it's kind of a gamble that we're taking here. We're saying, you know, which one is going to be a better bet or a better, you know, argument for what we're trying to do. My question would be, you know, if we are talking about connectivity of green space and open space throughout the town, which of these two areas, either the section of lot 13 and 14 or, you know, the buffer zone, I guess, from the river inward, which of those two has more potential for that, for connecting our green spaces? Are either of them?
I think my opinion on that is we're gonna get the area along the river regardless of what we say request. If we don't request anything, we're gonna get this area. This area along the river is gonna be as it's shown here. If we request it, we're gonna get this area along the river as shown here. It doesn't matter because there's nothing that they can do with it, and they're
But
not.
if they
we
own
don't
that-
get it, they will, if we don't get it, they are going to own it, and they, you know, then they can put fences at either end.
Absolutely.
You know, or do we try to think of, you know, do we try to think of a third option, right? Something that is like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, that says, okay, we know we want this pathway here, and we want it to be, you know, deeded to the town, deeded to the commission, to the town, excuse me. It would be ideal to also get lot 13 and 14. We understand that they probably won't want to part with two lots.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a negotiation where we say, we want these two lots. We will settle for one, the buffer zone of lot 13. If
I
you
would
also
think
commit to
9
us,
might be better.
I will leave it to everybody.
Well, I would say.
But
you
I'm
know,
saying, do we say something like, you know, because I do agree with what you're saying. When you ask for something, you know, you're starting here, and they're going to meet you halfway, right, with whatever we're asking for. But that river walkway, we know that potential for a river walkway or just for that river area is there, and we want it, and they're not going to be able to do anything with it. Although we've seen people do their own thing. So then the question is, do we try to go in and instead of saying, we really want to ask you for 2 lots, but in exchange of 2 lots, we ask you for this 1 lot, which is very valuable to the commission, and you also deed us this property over here.
You're a good negotiator.
So we can ask for 10% of the property, which is, it's 148,000 square feet. So we could ask for approximately 15,000 square feet. So if we asked for lot 13, that would give us a little bit more than what we're entitled to. It would
Mhm.
also provide a recreational area. It would also provide a buffer to the neighbors. It would be great if some of the neighbors were here to give us their public comment in terms of what they would prefer to see as open space. But I just reiterate that that 20-foot or probably 20 feet, 30-foot wide swath that's narrow in some areas along the river is area that's never going to be developed. So we were talking earlier about, the difference between open space and true open space. In this case, it's not going to have a deed restriction on it or something that couldn't be possibly developed. But from a practical perspective, they could never do anything with that property anyway. So it's always going to be a buffer between the development and the river, that little narrow strip.
Particularly because it floods, so.
Yeah,
But we've seen people put things up in places where
Yeah.
it's not practical.
but they wouldn't be permitted.
But the
Right-
wetlands is
Yeah,
preventing
right here,
them
there's a
from doing it.
retention basin. There's
Mhm.
a retention basin in this area, and then this is like what was the term that John Paul referred to it?
It's overflow.
Overflow area.
Compensation
A
overflow.
compensation overflow area.
Mhm.
So there's just, honestly, it's junk land. It's nothing that could be, there would be
Yeah.
no recreational value. Nothing could ever be done there.
Well-
I mean, these people could start
Encouraging.
Encouraging out of
Encroaching
their
on-
backyards, yeah.
and that would be something for the wetlands to be looking at, because it's within the
Well,
wetlands jurisdiction.
Sure, and if, we had a full staff of wetlands,
Yes, that's true.
then
Okay.
somebody,
But
monitoring
even if we own it,
situations like
people
that.
could,
Could.
So, as we said at the beginning, Paul, I think said at the beginning, we'd have the discussion, you didn't think we'd come to a conclusion. So how do we want to move forward?
why don't we each go and say around what we think would be best and see where the overlapping places are?
Sure, we could do that.
I want to say something. I think this is very interesting because usually when you negotiate in real estate, it's behind closed doors and we're being recorded, so they can hear our strategy.
Right.
So we're kind of like showing our hand. But I do.
We have no negotiation.
Right, we don't have.
We're not even at
they
the
can
table.
Listen to everything we're
Officially.
saying. So, with that being said, though, I do agree with the parcel with the basin is not going to be used, and that probably it would be more attractive to the residents if the open space was the interior, I think 13, 14, or 9, I think, to ask for that. And like Paul said, probably get the other one, if that's the. So I would agree with, I think that would make it more livable for the residents there as well. Because I see open space as part recreation and part, making it more enjoyable for the residents there.
So, can you
So I
say
agree with what Paul said about asking
for
for the
13 and 14?
13 and 14, and that will possibly, that would have been a negotiation that I would have had with somebody.
The other point is if we ask for that property, they could somewhat reconfigure what this street looked like too, in terms of where the other houses were. They'd need to provide us an access path to get from the street to the open space, which doesn't count toward the open space. And it would be, frankly, one less structure, one less house, 2 less families on the property. I know that's probably not something we can consider, but it would also have some potential recreational value, as opposed to, and it would be more representative of the property too.
Okay, so if I get you right, Valerie, you'd like to have 13 and 14 to reconsider and make that the portion of open space, and Paul, you're in concurrence with that.
Yes, I don't know if we could. I don't know if we could get both 13 and 14, but it would be terrific if we did. I think it would provide a pretty substantial area of open space connecting to the state's right of way, And if there ever was an exit ramp put there, it would still be open space too.
How would 13 and 14 connect to this? Yeah, okay, so through the, I'll withdraw the question, I see.
It would probably propose
Okay.
another lot between 11 and
Yep.
10 then.
But Paul, you bring up an interesting point, and I don't know what the legalities are on it. If, and it is a big if, they were ever to agree to have lots 13 and 14 obliterated and left as open space, and then the state comes in with their exit ramp and tears everything down, I'm not sure whether they can take that open space by eminent domain and get rid of it, or whether it is.
I think that they could.
I don't think they can.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but I don't see why they, I mean, the state,
I mean, if it's in the deed,
Yeah.
so eminent domain says they can take private property. They can take your land. And I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but I don't see why the state would say, well, this is property that Woodbridge has set aside as open space, we can't take it. I think they would say, we can take it. I'm not an attorney, but I would bet
It would be
money that they
something
would
to
take
really
it if they
look
wanted
into.
to.
I would be curious though if it was protected.
If it's
It was in the
protected,
deed.
it is not, nobody can take it, if it is properly protected. Now,
I don't know.
as pure open space, no, it's not protected. I mean, this is what we've just been
I
talking
would have a
about.
side bet with you that they could take it.
So let's keep.
This is
it
a
there.
gambling kind of evening.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we're
What
actually
is
past.
what would you propose?
You know, I propose whatever is the, clearest pathway forward with the least amount of obstacles, which gains us the greatest amount of space.
Me too.
Nobody disagrees with that.
I mean, I can see value in a variety of different properties here. You know, I think lot 13 it really does catch a larger number of backyards from other households or other properties that it's right up against. You know, I think for that neighborhood, it might even be nice to have lot 12 and 13 be, you know, kept as green space, because it adds more of a buffer, but also, you know, creates more of a communal
I
environment
think
in
that would
there.
be ideal, but unfortunately, they've started to build lot 12 already.
Right, that's right.
So, I mean, I think that would be ideal, you know,
Yeah.
but I think that,
Is lot 1 built already?
No, only the two.
Only 11 and 12.
Okay.
And do
So-
they have permits for it? This is what I don't understand.
I think they do.
They have
They talked
permit to
about it.
build? the
that's
permits
what
are
Chris
just-
told us, that
Yeah,
the
they-
first
yeah.
two that they had permits for.
They had the permits, okay.
So should we keep going? Around, are you done, Dan?
Then maybe even like, I think lot 1, and I think 13 are interesting, lots 1 and 13.
Okay. I think 8 and 9, because actually those are the ones that ensure more of a animal corridor and more protection to wetlands.
Continuous.
So that's what I would choose if I could. Then who knows, maybe, I mean, the likelihood of them liking this is nil, but 7, you know, if I was greedy. So that would be my interest, but I can appreciate the, 13 and 14 as well.
I agree with that, but I still feel that we need to somehow negotiate for that river edge too. I think it just needs to have a deed restriction put on it of some sort. I think we should ask for both, I guess is what I'm saying. And in the negotiating, say, come on, the one is not usable anyway, we're just getting it formalized. But it's not really, as you say, giving part of the property, because it was never really considered as part of the property. So just do it and negotiate with us about the other.
Right, it's a giveaway already.
Yeah.
All
My-
eyes on Tim.
My sense of it was going in and having discussions with John Paul and therefore the developer was that at this stage of the discussion, not to talk about them giving up their planned buildings. Because they've done this to maximize profit, which is what the developer's after. Assuming that when this gets to planning and zoning is gonna look at regulations and reduce the number of buildings if that's the appropriate thing to do. If we can come to this agreement with John Paul and the developer, then we don't rely on planning and zoning. If we go to planning and zoning, I don't know how they act and how they act on these things. I don't know if they're will be favorable to trying to get 10% or more. Given the nature, I think we're just blind to that. It's an unknown. Just as a point of information, in terms of lots 11 and 12, excuse me, I got the right, 13 and 14 are being, a recreation area up there. There's a block and a half away. There's a large park already with baseball fields and swings and stuff. So the neighborhood has good access, walkable access to recreation areas already. I'm not sure how much weight that's going to have in the discussion.
Can I just interject? This is not seesaws, and this is open space for the benefit of the open space,
Oh.
and someone can walk on it and
I
sit
was
and watch the birds.
just commenting based on Paul saying,
Okay.
talking about,
But I don't think anyone's thinking of this being a playground, right?
well, I thought I heard Paul make reference to that type of thing.
Well,
Was it-
so Paul, just to clarify for the commission, when you refer to recreation, are you referring to active or passive
I
recreation?
don't know, this is what the regulation says, is it says, shall be subdivided, reserve open space, park and recreation areas at a proportion of 10% of the gross acreage to be subdivided. So it says park, space, open space, park and recreation areas. So, even if it were an area where somebody could throw down a blanket and have a picnic or go for a walk, I would consider that kind of recreational space. Doesn't necessarily have to have a swing set or a baseball diamond on it to be recreation space.
No, but so that type of space, which I think you're referring to, would be something that does have to actually be actively maintained by the Public Works.
I wouldn't necessarily think so. I mean, it's not.
I mean, it would have to be mowed, right, if we want to
Yeah.
have a
Looking for the
picnic there.
HOA,
What?
are they having the HOA fees on this?
Oh, is this a homeowners association?
I think they
No,
discussed that.
It's
about
a single owner residential or rental complex, basically.
Yeah, but I think they had discussed having an HOA to maintain the drain
Oh,
basin
the-
at one time.
The
No,
property owner
the
would be
developer,
responsible.
the owner
Yeah.
will maintain that. The developer is the owner, and he will maintain
Change in the
Property
future.
the drainage.
Mhm.
But he had also mentioned an HOA fee, I believe.
And I don't recall that.
I think he said
I-
like the HOA would be responsible for, it, or the developer would be responsible. I'll tell you one thing that I keep thinking is how upset the neighbors were, and I'm trying to think of what would make their lives, better with this development. And I think that something close to their backyard would be the thing that they would appreciate being open
Yeah,
space the most.
But I feel like we
It's
didn't
true.
really hear what Valerie had to say. Did you feel complete, Valerie, with what you're saying? Did you feel complete with what you're saying?
Did we interrupt you?
I'm trying to remember how I heard it. I may have
think you
heard it
asked-
individually on my own.
I think you asked maybe at one time who would be responsible for maintaining it, or there was some discussion about that.
I believe in the beginning, before we discussed it, I believe I spoke to somebody. I think I spoke to the developer before, because of my occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I believe I heard it.
Okay.
It
Interesting.
may not have been part of this discussion, but I was inquiring about units, I think 11 and 12, and then talking about that, and I think that's where I may have heard it then. But I do remember that there was discussion of an HOA.
Okay. All right, we need to sort of move towards a close here. So
Can
eventually,
I ask just a Brett, who is gonna, would someone come before us, or would you negotiate, or how does it,
well,
how would the negotiations work?
I've
We
been
write a
having,
proposal?
I mean, John, the way it started, John Paul and I, when I became aware of it, John Paul and I started having informal discussions, and we've evolved it. And then the committee talked about the northeast corner as a possibility also, and that's the way. And as my statement just a minute ago, you know, in my informal, I've never considered asking them to remove houses because you know, trying to work within the framework of what they wanted to develop. I didn't feel it was our business to tell them how many houses, units they could develop. We have no authority to, and it was very clear from the beginning that's what they were going to develop, and what, or the other pieces, what would you be interested in? And
Well, that's
they
what
were
I-
very amenable to the other pieces, but you know, when you all bring up, you know, a different thought about it, and you know, good points about buffers for the neighbors, but it affects the development, and I have no, I don't think the developers are gonna negotiate or away two of the houses to us. Now, planning and zoning could happen there, but as I said, we don't, you know, we're not in that process per se, except to say, you know, we can write a request to the, you know, planning and zoning. You know, I've already written to them once saying that we will, you know, we were interested in open space on this parcel, so they would know. At the conclusion, I see us writing again and either saying, yeah, we've agreed with, had an agreement with the developer, and this is, we agree with that open space, or number two, you know, no, we haven't agreed, but we'd like open space, and maybe what we do is we say, here are three options. You know, this is what, you know, maybe we rank them, but,
If
you
you
know.
give them three options, they'll always take the one that is the least, right?
Maybe none of them. are
Depends
used.
who's having the discussion, I guess. I mean, you know,
I mean, I look at this is someone who had the interest in developing this as extensively as possible
yeah,
to make the most money.
yeah.
Of
That is a
course,
very
that's what
important thing
developers
for
do.
the developer. Our job is very important for the earth, and
Yeah.
our job is to advocate that we want to protect it, and it takes a lot of work, and we're not going to get, I mean, John Paul is very good at what he does, and we have to get good at what we do, which is trying to protect land.
I think, you know, my concern is not the developer's profit. I'm concerned about the neighbors and
Yeah.
its effect on the environment. And I think those are our primary concerns. And if
Yeah.
it means that they have to reconfigure their development or not have an extra house there or extra two houses, I don't think anybody on Merritt Avenue would complain about that.
I also think that the planning and zoning needs to know that we have this concern and we
Mhm.
feel that
Yeah.
there needs to be either a buffer or less houses or whatever,
I don't know
however
if,
you want to explain it.
I don't know if we have I don't know if we have grounds to request that. We have grounds to, I guess, per the regulations, to ask for our 10% be set aside for open space, parks or recreation area.
Yeah.
So if we say we think that's the ideal location for it, I think that would be our approach, is that's.
Well, that's what I'm, exactly
Yeah,
what I'm
that's-
saying,
Yeah.
but we need to ask for not just say, okay, this is the development, what the developers want, and we'll take the leftover tidbits, but that the commission feels strongly that to get the 10%, there needs to be some change in the development itself.
Yeah, I agree. I think that developers historically want to maximize their profit.
Sure.
But I thought that our duty as a conservation committee was to preserve open land and to make sure
Yeah.
that the development is going to be livable for the residents there and for the community at large. And that it's really not our, that's what I thought that our charge was, to
Yeah,
make
well,
sure
the
that.
latter part, not so much. I don't think we have any charter or authority to, to affect the specific development. The specific development is according to the planning and zoning, and that's why that commission is gonna be looking at it and the density and addressing those concerns. We can make the request that, and having the, maximum open space we get is, we should do that. If we can come to an agreement beforehand, planning and zoning, it smooths it.
We
You know,
understand.
Otherwise, it gets into, we can, write a long letter, we can explain our concerns along with, similar to the residents, or a lot of people are gonna express those concerns, I'm sure, to planning and zoning about the density and so on and so forth. And we can add ours, but then we'll be leaving it to them to negotiate the 10%,
I think
the
we need to
so-called
do a little more
10%.
research and talk to Chris Sullivan and see, she knows more about this than we do, and she might have some really good suggestions. And I also have heard from wetlands that they'd like us to do that corridor, they think it's a good idea to do a trail. And find out if that's just a nice idea, or if there's a reason they'd rather have us do that than,
If who would rather have us do that, I lost track.
I spoke to someone on wetlands who mentioned that, they thought it was a really nice idea to do this trail. That's actually secondary. I don't know how out of bounds it is that we ask them, Merritt Avenue, to change its plan to protect land, but I know that if we don't, nobody will.
But we're not asking Merritt Avenue, we're asking
The town.
planning and zoning to have Merritt Avenue change their
Yeah.
plans so that
Okay, that's right. You're
this,
right.
this property can be set
Oh.
aside.
So
nothing
can
that
we-
we do is, the conservation is, it seems like nothing is binding coming from us, it's
Correct.
more binding from
We
planning and
have
zoning.
no authority.
We're advising or
developer-
suggesting to the.
Well,
Okay, so
zoning.
we're-
We're asking, our request is to planning and zoning to invoke the regulations for open space for a subdivision.
And
That's
this is
all
where
we can- that's all we can do.
And this is where we'd like to see it.
Well, and we can suggest where we'd like to see it.
Yeah.
And if we can't, and,
So
we,
I would-
maybe we should, think about it some more, and then next meeting, we'll try to, we'll
Well,
be.
Just wait,
I have
one
a-
point is that one of the things that Chris told us, and Valerie told us too after she talked to Chris, was that we could request land that was representative of the entire parcel. And that little strip along the river is not representative of the entire parcel. So I think we can ask for more than
Well,
what's being offered.
I think,
Oh, that's,
I-
yeah.
representative is gonna be the crucial word there, I guess. And what does that mean? And I'm sure,
So-
in terms of, if it's all 100% wetlands, then you get 10% wetlands, and so I think it's the type of land and some balance. So I mean, I think you can make that argument a lot of different ways, and is it representative? It has some wetlands on it, it's some dry land, and, you know, in that case, it's probably close to representative.
Can I try to create a proposal right now and see if people could agree with it, so that we could actually agree to something that we can work with, or at least we have something that we could possibly work with? And I think from what I understand is that we feel like we would like a representative 10%, which would involve lot 13 and 14. I personally think we could substantiate, because of the wetlands issue, 8 and 9 more, but I hear everyone wants those more. And in addition, we do appreciate the importance of the land that is in the upland review, you know, the wetlands in the upland review area. And we appreciate that that's gonna also be protected because it needs to, because of its wetlands. And, you know, dear TP&Z, I hope you understand that this is our best, you know, suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, so was that a motion?
Well, I'm first floating it to see
Okay.
if people have an idea
Yeah.
of it.
So a request to be made that the represented 10% of the lands would involve lots 13 and 14, along with the river corridor over here.
In addition, we understand that that's an upland review area that we would, that's an important environmental area that we'd also like maintained.
One of the things I asked John Paul was what the square footage was of those two lots of 13 and 14. I can't read this because the print's so small on it, but he said that lot 13 was 17,000 square
17,000
feet
and 14 was 15,000.
and 15,000, so that's more than the 10%. So
So maybe we just ask for one of those.
that's what I was thinking. But you know, we could certainly ask for two, but
Well,
that would be more than the 10%.
and, Paul, I just think in terms of for the TP&Z, I mean, I appreciate trying to create a better environment for those residents because it is going to be a shock to them. But in terms of a conservation, I'm just wondering if we could substantiate, and the lots are smaller because they have less roadway and they have less, is 8 and 9. I mean, because we really are protecting, we're buffering, and we're creating a corridor. So, and they'd have to, you know, I'm sure they wouldn't want to do it because it would mean reconfiguring this road, which is key to their whole development. But
If
whereas
it
13
wasn't,
and 14, they might want to do it instead because it wouldn't change the whole.
yeah, if it wasn't in those three people's backyard, number 13, I would agree with you. But
But I don't think their backyards I mean, it's not unlegitimate, but we're supposed to be protecting land and not people's backyards.
we're supposed to protect a certain percentage of the land. So if we select the one that also has some other side benefits too, and one
Yeah.
has the side benefit of being increasing the buffer to
Well-
some of the wetlands, the other one has the quality of life impact for the residents, and I would say.
I'd also say adding to the, may I jump in on
Sure,
that?
sure.
With adding to the quality of life, while I do appreciate adding value to quality of life, the other thing it might help with is some of like the urban, I'm thinking of like Urban Heat Island, because it's going to be a little more densely packed, even though these are a bit bigger than that. It's still, you're starting to get closer development together.
Well, I imagine if they did agree to 13 and 14, I imagine they'd put lot 13
yeah, they'd
right
make a
here
new-
instead of that road, those two roads.
I think that those two driveways are just a wee bit too narrow for another one right there, but maybe not.
I think it's about a lot size.
All right. It seems we still have a lot of
Lots to talk about.
lots to talk about.
Lots
So
to
I'm
talk-
going to suggest we try to develop our thoughts until the next session. The next inland wetlands is the day before our next meeting. So, we're certainly not going to be, it's not going to be in front of planning and zoning. So we still have time to work this and to come to some consensus on it. So I'm going to suggest a good discussion, and some things came out, and let's try to pick it up next meeting.
There are several of the houses that are in the upland review area, so 9 is, 14, and 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually valid too. Can we also add the housing committee's report and our discussion about that next meeting?
Yeah, I already I
Okay.
wrote that down, Sharon, I think
Good deal.
That's a
we
good
we
idea.
can,
It's gonna be a long meeting.
um,
Sure.
It's a long day.
yeah, when we, you know, given what we want to include, we may not bring in a guest speaker, we'll just save that time.
There won't be a guest speaker, or we will have Tony?
I'll look at, you know, this apparently is gonna be a long discussion, but didn't think it would be. And the housing, I think, has potential to, I'm not sure where that's gonna go, so, you know, as I look at the time we have, we may not wanna have a guest speaker.
I would suggest on that housing discussion that we look at the different properties that they are suggesting and provide them some feedback in terms of what our thoughts are for those locations.
Yeah, I'm wanna get my hands on the proposal.
Slightly different subject, but since it was on the agenda tonight,
Yeah.
is there a way that people would agree to have a special meeting to discuss the Greenway extensions only?
I would be fine with that. I think it's an important
Somewhere
topic.
before the next meeting? I mean, just to catch up
How
with
about the
ourselves,
first
because I
Thursday
think
of
we
the
have so much ever-present important things that we have to talk about at our regular meetings, and the Greenway is something we don't want to lose, but I think if people are agreeable to a special meeting for
Since
that
it's a special
discussion
meeting,
only?
Can we meet earlier? I said, since it's a special meeting, can we meet a little earlier?
Yeah.
Sure.
And the other
That's-
question is, can we have
That's a-
Kate maybe give us that
You can?
tutorial then
It's
too?
a trade-off, right? I'd like to see the special meeting you wanted earlier.
Please.
Sharon, I'm sorry, I was talking to Paul, I know you started to talk.
Sorry, I was just thinking it might be a time when Kate could talk about the Google,
The funding
Sheets.
the
database on the
funding
sheets.
database. Thank you.
Okay, well, that would be 2 topics for the special meeting? I don't know, Barbara, that was in your thought, you wanted to focus, I
You want to
think.
just do Greenway? Should we just do Greenway?
I would think it would take up a meeting.
I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if we put it on as a question mark, then we could talk about it, or we could decide not to.
Well, just to, sorry, yeah, I was gonna say, because with a special meeting, you have to put it on the agenda that's
Yeah.
posted, you can't
Yeah.
add anything
I-
to it, so.
I'm sorry with Barbara, we focus on that, and we'll just do that.
Okay.
And then, the sheets is not, I don't think a very
It's
long
a
item.
very simple
Okay.
It should be short.
thing.
I actually have a Google Sheets open
Okay.
if you wanna see.
Google
Did,
Sheets.
oh boy, it's 10 o'clock.
Okay,
Should I just, I guess we'll put up the calendar and then see. And I'll, you know, the tool that you had sent out originally, Diana.
Oh, the when to meet?
Yeah, when to
Mhm.
meet.
For a special meeting? How long
Or
ahead
June-
of time do we have to notify it?
Special meeting, you know, in 3 days, I think. So,
3 days? you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm away next week. So I'll throw something up for.
June 2nd is 2 weeks from now, I'll just throw that date out there.
Hmm?
June 2nd is 2 weeks from now.
Sounds
yeah,
good.
I just,
I don't know what the other wetlands meeting or housing,
Well, according to Tim, the wetlands meeting is on the 15th of June. Next one,
So June 2nd would be fine.
the day before our meeting, so.
yeah. Okay, we can, you wanna just try June 2nd?
start with the doodle, not the doodle
Of course, I
poll.
didn't
Start
bring
with
my
the when
calendar
to
with
meet.
We don't have to, well, we agreed to June 2nd, we don't have to do that, I did that.
I didn't bring my calendar, so I can't totally, completely commit.
Why don't I put it out there for June 2nd and see
Yep.
if that works?
I can
Okay.
tell you by
Okay.
tomorrow.
All right, any motion to adjourn here?
I so move.
I second.
Second.
And,
Can't second.
non-debatable, I guess, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay.